Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can find the show online at buildingthefutureshow.com or follow me on Twitter at BuildingShow. You can also find it on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. I'm excited to announce that I am now a brand ambassador for the Business Rock Summit in Manchester, England, April 21st and 22nd, where Steve Wozniak is headlining. More details at business-rocks.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have David Tiessen, Director of Business Development at Atarian Renewables. David, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I think what you guys are doing is super important, and that's kind of why I wanted to have you on the show. But kind of maybe before we get into the company, maybe let's get to know you a little bit better and cover kind of where you grew up.
Okay, sure. Let's see. I was born in London, England. Lived there till I was about 13 years old. And then we moved over to Canada, over to British Columbia, down on the coast. And now I've moved about 4 hours away up to the sunny Okanagan. Kelowna is what most people might know, but
Nice.
a little outside of Kelowna, which is Peachland, a beautiful lake country, kind of like maybe just think north of Tahoe.
Right. I love that area. I was actually there in the summer. My buddy has a place there, and we were staying there for a week. I love it. We try to go every year if we can.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know where this water comes from in the lake, but it definitely never rains here. It's sunny 8 months of the year, and it's really kind of a two climate place. You just get about 2 months of winter, and the rest is nice, dry, warm weather most of the time, somewhere between, 20 to 40 degrees kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I'm curious then, kind of, what did you take in post-secondary?
Oh, I did 2 years of college, which was criminology. At that time, I thought I wanted to be a police officer, but by the time I'd finished my 2 years at crim, I'd taken some economics, and I really found that interesting. So I transferred up to business and then moved into economics up at Simon Fraser University down on the coast.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
what did you do kind of once you graduated?
Well, while I was going to college, I was mostly working in construction. I sort of thought, geez, if I'm going to get a business degree here, I should probably get a job in an office. And I ended up, my first office job was working at the federal government. I started off as a collection officer, and then just moved up the ranks for various jobs, in the accounting departments and from collections up to being an investigator for the federal government.
Oh, really?
And then, yeah. So it turns out my criminology didn't turn out to be a waste.
So what kind of stuff were you doing? Or investigating, I guess.
Fraud for people that it was unemployment insurance basically, and so it could be people that were maybe on vacation and collecting benefits. There's lots of programs such as FedEx mail gets checked. So the border people would send us faxes all the time of people writing letters to their roommates saying, yeah, can you please send in my cards for me? Now it's all done electronically, so maybe you can get away with it. I don't know. I'm talking about from 20 years ago when I worked there.
Right.
But yeah, it was fraud investigations, people that collecting unemployment benefits when they were really working under the table or something like that.
Interesting. Huh. So then how did you start with Atarian Renewables?
I guess just to finish my background there, then
Sure.
after the federal government, I went into, I really got into the stock market and took my securities course and was being a prop trader up until the dot-com days and the bubble burst, and realized I wasn't as good as a trader as I thought I was. But luckily I'd sort of divested some of my profits into real estate, and that's what sort of led us up to the Okanagan here. Real estate took off after that, and I just sort of found myself in that wave. And when I sold our properties down on the coast, from a trading stock sort of background, you're trading apples at apples unless you decide to move in a different jurisdiction. So I moved up to the Okanagan here, and when 2008 subprime crash happened, I found myself needing a real estate tanked, and so I've been basically self-employed for the last 15 years. So I found a need to reinvent myself and find a new career, and sort of just being aware of what's going on in the world, just the same as everyone else. Really, I don't know if I can see into the future, but I'm starting to think I can a bit and see around corner. I just seem to be able to position myself into what's coming next, and just out of concern for sustainability of the planet, I was talking in regards to a different project that I wanted to get going in regards to some people, and just by chance or synchronicity, Lloyd's son just happened to Lloyd Davis is our founder and CEO and the creator of our process and solid biofuel, but his son just happened to be at that meeting and told me his dad was working in biomass, and I was like, well, why don't you get your dad to give me a phone call? And about a couple of weeks later, he did, and told me about what he was working on and what he'd created. And he was just basically coming out of about 4.5 years of research and development, and now was into the let's commercialize this process and raise some capital. And I was basically blown away by what he'd done and saw the potential of this, and also saw that I thought I could help him out on the capital raise side of things. So that was about 1.5 years ago, and here we are today. Still raising capital, but we've really sort of reached a critical mass, and we've got a number of projects on the drawing boards. But that was how I started with Artarian.
Interesting. So I'm kind of curious, maybe like what exactly is the company and what are you guys trying to do?
What Artarian is that it's an innovation in the field of biomass. What we do is we're able to basically make a direct replacement for coal, which has all of the beneficial characteristics of thermal coal without the negative, and the negatives being pollution, sequestered CO2.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think that's super important because obviously we all know coal's not great for the planet, and the fact that you guys are kind of coming up with an alternative is pretty awesome and really intriguing to me. So I'm curious though how kind of the whole thing got started, and maybe kind of talk about how you guys kind of decided to kind of get into this thing originally, and kind of maybe the history of Artarian and kind of the space and maybe even the founder's background a little bit.
Sure. It was almost the same as myself sort of stumbling into Artarian. Lloyd, our founder, pretty much stumbled into the solid biofuels field himself. His background in being a genius and speaking many languages, as he said, and then when he means languages, he means like physics, chemistry, lawyer. He speaks all of those sort of things. But he'd previously, his background, he'd been working in catalytics for an auto manufacturer in regards to the exhaust, which was you've got X amount of exhaust pollution basically coming out, and they would I think it was ammonia. He said they had involved. So by the exhaust going through the ammonia, a catalytic reaction would happen, and it would change the molecules of the exhaust coming out. I'm not the technologist, so I may be getting that wrong. But that was basically on the catalytic side of things. And then he was down at UBC, I forget what the innovations research place there, but we're doing some research with some other people, and he started to, they're working on solid biofuels. And it was pretty much along on the same sort of catalytic side. I mean, liquid biofuels, I should say, not solid. And he sort of just decided that, or discovered that he didn't think the economics for making liquid biofuels was as viable as working on the solid side. And I'm guessing what that is if there's a lot more processing obviously involved in creating a liquid biofuel than there's a solid biofuel. It's probably going to be a lot more pure and stuff like that, so it doesn't clog up our motors and things. So he just found himself shifting into solid biofuels, and that's sort of how we got creating it or starting it. So that was about Artarian's been around, I think, for pretty much close to 6 years. So I've been with him for a year and a half, and Lloyd was pretty much working on this for about 4.5 years in research and development. So I guess the way it sort of goes is theoretically he knew what was possible, and now in the lab it was can I create this, which pretty much what Artarian does is it takes the cellulose molecule, which is or compound, which is the most abundant compound on the planet outside of water, and which is found in all biomass. So it could be trees, manure, municipal solid wastes, which is 40 to 50% biomass. Could be grass, even human effluent solid. So it's an abundant feedstock, and there's lots of waste materials that are sitting around on the planet which aren't being utilized, and are even actually creating a bit of a problem. But he moved into working on these at the lab scale. I think he told me he had, to explain pretty much our technology, he creates, with food-grade chemicals, pretty much what he explains is the world's smallest scissors, which is we take the cellulose molecule and nibbles off some of the less combustibles, and he's now left with more combustible molecules and some added oxygen, which creates a solid biofuel, which now is in the ranges of the highest grades of coal. And with the added oxygen that's in there, you get a complete burn, which now results in 1% of the ash content is created, which is where coal creates 16 to 15% ash. And of course, that ash in coal has a whole bunch of nasty chemicals in it, arsenic, sulfur, and it's which is not good for people with breathing problems.
Sure.
And now it's the other parts of the product is it's hydrophobic, so it's just like coal. It can be stored outside, shipped outside, and it grinds and burns exactly like coal, which makes it what's known in the industry as a drop-in replacement. So currently for coal-fired plants, whose business model is under attack from other renewables such as solar and wind, as well as increasing emissions standards, and also now climate change. So that's creating carbon taxes are increasing. So the coal-fired plants I think the epitaph has been written for them. They either have to upgrade to reduce their emissions, or they've now got their options is we're switching to plain wood pellets, which that industry has grown 1,300% since 2002, or they can convert to natural gas. So to convert to wood pellets, it's $650,000 per megawatt conversion cost. For natural gas, it's $1.2 million per megawatt to convert. But now you can simply switch to Artarian's product at no additional cost. So in terms of what's happening in climate change and how long does it take us for the world to move beyond coal, which 41% of the world's electricity is created by coal, creating 44% of all CO2 emissions. So as much as we realize we now need to move off of coal and there's viable technologies to make that happen, it's going to take at least a decade, I think. We're probably looking more like maybe closer to 20 years for all these other renewables to ramp up and replace coal. So, but now with Artarian coming along, I think we may be able to, I just sort of guessed at this number, but I wouldn't be surprised if we were able to knock maybe a decade or so off by coal plants converting simply to our product. So now just nearby these facilities, we need to ramp up our facilities and using local waste materials, whether it's sawdust coming out of mills or manure, which could be cattle, pig, chicken, such as in Canada. There's enough cattle manure alone to turn into a solid biofuel, would create enough electricity to power 60 million homes.
Wow, that's
So there's
incredible.
yeah, and around the world with from just creating sugar from the sugar cane, what's left over is known as bagasse. It's the stalk and stuff. And from talking to other nations, yeah, there's mountains of this stuff just sitting around, which has basically no economic value, which now can be turned into a solid biofuel to replace coal and keep that sequestered CO2 in the ground.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating to me. So I'm curious how you, because you said Lloyd spent 5 years kind of before you started. How did he kind of fund this, or did you get like grants or self fund, or how did he kind of afford to do all this research?
Yeah, it's been mostly through his own funding, but here in Canada, when you're doing research and development, you can claim what's known as a shred
Oh yeah,
when
okay,
you
yeah.
file your when you do your taxes. So whatever money you put in, you can. Well, I think right now the deduction is about 55% as a blanket. I think last year it was 65%, and maybe in previous years it might have been higher than that. But so it basically means that if you put $100 in, you'll get $55 back. So Lloyd had his own funds, and he was funding it from his own in the beginning, and then also recouping whatever was the allowable back, and that kept the process going.
Sure, no, I think that's awesome. Um, so I'm curious then, kind of, you said you're kind of, you have a product. How are you kind of going to market, and what are your kind of strategies around going to market?
So the stage our hearing is at now is after sort of moving from a lab, small sort of tin kind. Our process is a reactor, which is known as a bioreactor. It's glass lined, and in goes our whatever our feedstock may be, wood shavings or agricultural waste or manure, whatever the case may be. And then the food grade catalyst that Lloyd is, which is the secret sauce of our process, basically. And so he's scaled up from, a tin can size reactor over the years, larger and larger to show the scalability. So our largest reactor that we've been tested at now is 1,100 liters,
Oh wow,
and which is considered a commercial scale.
sure.
Like I think if we just had that running on a daily basis, it'd probably produce I don't know maybe about $250,000 worth of product each year. So definitely commercial, but nothing that's going to change the world. So we've been independently tested now along those ways of scaling up over those 5 years from BC Hydro's PowerTech, which is here in British Columbia, is our largest utility. They've tested our product. We've also been tested by SGS, which is a world-renowned testing facility for our low emissions, or no pollution, I should say, low ash, and then our increased energy density, which is about 40% greater than wood pellets at the moment, and rivaling the highest grades of coal. And then also from Grow Technologies, which I believe is out of Alberta, right where you're at.
Right.
So we've scaled up our process. We've been tested independently along the lines, and now we're in this last phase, which is jumping to commercial production. So there's sort of two facets we're moving to make that happen. One is on the developing project side and trying to either find joint venture partners to get in on that side, and also now speaking to investors and venture capitalists and institutional investors to raise capital for our project. So what we're working on currently is here in Peachland, we've gone to the local municipality and we said, hey, we'd like to create this product because it's in our backyard, a 15 megawatt facility here in Peachland, and if you want to help us make this happen by your in-kind contribution. So what they're going to do is they're going to donate the land to us, and we'll give them back a percentage of the project.
Right.
So it's 15 megawatts because here in British Columbia, the Power Authority has a stand-in 15 megawatt purchase power agreement. So they'll basically buy up to 15 megawatts of electricity off of whoever produces it.
Right.
So we're going to create 15 megawatts of electricity, which is pretty much twice the power that Peachland, with a population of 5,000, requires. It will get sold to the grid, and then we'll collect checks from BC Hydro, and basically this project will take 23% of the biofuel that we create and utilize it in a turbine here to create the electricity, with about 77% of the remaining biofuel that will now start to ship around the world to coal-fired plants for them to test our product and get some orders from them.
That's awesome.
So that's on one project side here. So it will be 24 reactors, and cost roughly $15 million to build that project.
Oh, wow.
We'll return a gross of $28 million, and we're very viable. This is all in U.S. dollars, actually, and we net about $9 million a year.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So when is this kind of going to be, I guess, built, and in like 2016, or it takes longer than that, or?
We'll start construction sometime, hopefully in the spring.
Okay.
And it should take us about 8 months to complete the whole project. But what we're planning on doing, it all depends. If we get the $15 million right off the bat, then we'll just go ahead and build the whole project.
Sure.
If we end up maybe just getting a few $1 million in the beginning, because it's 24 reactors. So once we get about 2 reactors, we can just put those together and start producing biofuel on a daily basis. So we're scaling up from 1,100 liters to these reactors are 7,500 liters. So for the investment community out there, even though we've scaled up over the years and we've been independently tested, there's still the very skeptical investors who are like, well, you're not producing this on a daily basis. So it's beneficial for us to get a couple of reactors up and running.
Right.
If that's just how the funding works out, and start producing, X amount of tons per day. So that may either happen here at Peachland, or we've won some significant awards lately. And last time we were in Vancouver, we met up with BCIT, the British Columbia Institute of Technology, and they've offered us to their facilities and the Applied Research Center to build the couple of either 2 to 4 reactors down there. So we may end up, and it looks like that's going to happen, actually put our first couple of reactors together down there while Peachland goes through the approval process. Being the government, they've got all of the lands are currently zoned parks, so they got to zone the ones we've selected that they gave to us. They've now got to rezone those, and I think there'll be a public consultation process involved with that. So while they're working through that, we'll probably get going on building the couple of reactors down in Vancouver at the BCIT facility. And then that will basically work out to be the backbone of the Peachland project, and we'll just ship it up here because that process is modular. So it sort of serves 2 functions. We'll not only be presenting to the rest of the world and the numerous interest that we are receiving from around the world. We're getting contacted by, just yesterday, there was 2 coal-fired plants from the United States that got hold of us. We're now starting to reach out to them, and they're asking more questions. We're talking to someone in Alberta as well. I got contact from a nuclear facility in Africa, interested in our technology. And there's also a few other people in Africa. So we're getting interest from around the world, and we're also working on a project. We're about 5 months into those negotiations with Ontario, because Ontario shut all their coal-fired plants down, I think around 2009 or so.
Right.
But which is great, because coal has presented a conundrum for the planet in that it's cheap, reliable baseload energy, but at a terrible cost to health and planet.
Totally.
And there really hasn't been a solution up until now that solar and wind are becoming economical, but they still don't compete with the cost of coal, and they're not baseload electricity, which means when we all turn our air conditioners on and the world's energy needs ramp up, you just can't ramp up solar electricity. It just comes in as the sun beats or the wind blows, basically.
Sure.
Whereas with these on-demand facilities, you can just bung more coal in the furnace and create more electricity. So there's always going to be a future for baseload power and this on-demand power, and that's sort of the bastion of strength of coal still now, is it's until Mr. Tesla or whoever else ramps up the storage solutions that are viable and are already ramped up around the world. There's going to be coals will still be able to hang in there, still being cheaper and a necessary requirement for baseload electricity. So that's really the strength now of our Terran, that we sort of come in here as, if the epitaph was coal has been written by solar and wind, I think we're the final nail in the coffin.
No, I think that's awesome. And that's kind of why I wanted to have, you and you guys on the show, is because I love the idea that you guys are basically fixing the problems with old infrastructure, because there's a lot of guys doing some really cool stuff in kind of the renewable space. But part of the problem is there's all this old infrastructure, and what you guys are doing is you're basically saying, instead of burning coal, just burn our product. And I love that idea, right? And I think more people need to kind of think about that. And I'm curious, though, you guys are making connections throughout, kind of the world and whatnot. Do you have any tips and advice on kind of how to go about dealing with governments and these big organizations and whatnot? Because obviously you're talking to them and you guys are getting projects happening and started with them. Do you kind of have any advice for people looking to do the same?
Don't give up and have lots of patience, I'd say, and keep knocking on doors. It's, from being self-employed and, basically creating my own projects with my own funds, whether it's investing in the stock market or in real estate, you sort of decide that this is a viable project to do, and I've just been able to start it organically myself. So trying to attract interest and raise funds it's humbling.
So are you cold calling? Are you just cold emailing? Are you just trying to ask for, do you know anybody that works at such and such a place kind of thing?
It has been lots of cold calling and, working through the internet via various websites and such. Just sort of these awards have been very good for attracting attention to us. But it's it started off with Lloyd and then myself, and then I've attracted now some brokers basically that pair up their investors that they're aware of with either solar and wind, or in our case biomass.
Right.
So they're basically out there acting as brokers, bringing interested parties to the table. So that's how it's working on the financing side. And then I've been working, I really don't have to do so much on the financing side. We've got quite a team now working for us on that. And then I've started to speak with Peachland, because I actually live in Peachland, and brought this project to them. So they've been very interested. It's been about a year. So that's the government side of things. You'd think when you go to someone and you're like, hey, we're willing to basically give you some money if you would just partner up some land here, that things would happen a lot faster. But no, governments seem to work a bit at a glacial pace.
Sure.
Nothing like corporations do. And it takes as I see this, I think this is groundbreaking technology that may even win a Nobel Prize. And we're really, I think, reached a critical mass now that funding for our projects are just around the corner. We got some significant government meetings coming up now that we started a couple of weeks ago, and for December 1st or 3rd, we'll be in Vancouver following up on that. But for a while there, it was, I'm watching the world talk about climate change and, how we got to get off of coal and the whole movement of sustainability and into renewables. And I almost felt like a voice in the background going, "Hey, hello, over here. Like, we're the saviors." And it's taken a lot longer. It's been a year and a half since I've been working on this. I really would have thought. Well, right now I just finished saying, I think funding is like around the corner, but I said that 6 months ago.
Sure.
So,
but I think that's really good to mention, right? Because everybody talks about, oh, you just put out a product and then you're going to get money right away. I like the fact that you're being honest about and of how long it takes. And I know I've worked on some government projects over the years, and like they do move a lot slower, and especially big corporations, they move a lot slower, and it's just how they are, and you need to be patient and ride it out and whatnot. And I think, the reward at the end is going to be totally worth it. And it makes sense for you guys, and I guess just keep at it. And I love what you guys are doing. I know you kind of mentioned, and when we talked before, you guys won some awards recently. Do you maybe want to kind of cover what you guys won?
Sure. But I guess I'll just finish off that last question here, because I just thought of how I posed to advance it a lot
sure.
more succinctly. Yeah, my advice to any entrepreneurs in whatever field, I would say, from now what I've learned is try to grow your circle where you can get some people that are going to work for you for free, pretty much, for a return in the future, which is pretty much what I've been doing for the last year and a half. But now that we have, as I see it, it's also like, you just your circle just starts to get bigger with the contacts you make over time, and you start to, from the brokers we've attracted, and then from one of the brokers basically led us to another biomass company, and we believe that CEO of that company is actually going to turn out to be the CEO of our company, and he's the one that actually brought the Ontario project to the table, which is in Ontario they shut down all these coal-fired plants, but you're right, it's wasted infrastructure. They still have economic life left to them. We just don't want to be burning coal with them. So he's brought those projects to the table, but just bit by bit now, and really the last 6 months, we've started to, from the Peachland project, which led to the CIDIT, it's known as, which is the Southern Interior Development and Investment Trust. They're now interested in being part of a consortium of investors to fund the project. So on the investment community side, no one seems to really want to be first, but once you sort of get one person involved, then someone else will come in with part of the funding. And that's, so out of this $15 million, we may all find one person or institution that may do the funding, but it really looks like it's going to be a consortium of different investors that come in with a couple of million here and a couple of million there. And no one seems to, I don't know if, myself coming from an investment background, I found it easy to jump into investments if I thought it was the right thing to do. But I'm really, I don't know if it's since 2008, there's not an appetite for risk, and I really don't think the risk on our project is super low. We've scaled up, we've been tested, but it's and we're very viable. But for those entrepreneurs out there, try to grow your circle and get different people in, and you will all of a sudden just reach, as I keep referring to it, as a critical mass, and then your efforts won't need to be so much on knocking on doors anymore. It will just now start to grow on its own, and that's really the stage that we're at now. I think we're sort of reached a critical mass, and it's becoming a bit of a beast all on its own. We're now going to probably get this funding and grow really fast, and lots. Once we're up and running, producing X amount of tons a day, there's going to be much more interest from around the world, and there's going to be some growing pains to this company, that's for sure. But keep knocking on doors.
Sure. No, I think that's really good advice. You guys won some recent awards, so maybe do you want to kind of talk about what those were and kind of what they were for?
Yeah, sure. The first award I applied for was the Tech Awards, which is out of California, Silicon Valley. And even though I just sort of came across it online and applied for it, I wasn't quite aware of how prestigious it is. But it is known as the Oscars of Silicon Valley. And if anyone out there is not quite aware, but yeah, there's a lot of innovation happening in Silicon Valley, and that attracts a lot of the money. So
Sure.
a lot of the people that we're talking to are actually down there. So it was quite a prestigious award, and what the Tech Awards is all about is people that are using technology for the betterment of humanity. So I applied to that, and we were named as a finalist. So finalist isn't someone that won. Our category was for sustainable development, and it's about a 5 month vetting process. And yeah, we were named as finalists. Pretty much what held us back is they really wanted to see some demonstrable impact, and we can't actually say we're reducing this much CO2 or pollution because we're not in commercial production. So
Right.
that's why we sort of were the runner-up in that one.
But that's still a really good achievement. I think maybe you're downplaying it a little bit, but I think that's a really good achievement to be a finalist in that awards, right? And just even getting exposure for the company is even worth it, right? And the fact that it took 5 months and you came out, it like that's awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Even though we've won some other awards, yeah, I think maybe that finalist one might have been our biggest award to date. But yeah, no, it is. We're honored to have been named a finalist, and they sort of went above and beyond, I think, to reiterate to us and explain that if we apply next year, I think depend on what the other ones apply, but yeah, once we're up and running, I think if we reapply back next year, then we'll be named as a laureate, which is one of the finalists. But yeah, to be named the finalist means that we got out of all of the people that applied in that category, we made it down to the last 5. So yeah, it's an honor, and yeah, and you're absolutely correct. This is bits of press you get to put out there, which attract other people, which might have led to Fierce Energy, which is a magazine that's out there, and they named us as one of 15 smart grid companies to watch in 2015. So that was another accolade that we received.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah. Then we applied for a Startup Canada award for also, actually the Tech Awards was the environment, it was, that was known as. We applied for Sustainable Development for Startup Canada. We're won that for the western region of Canada.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah, that was just recently, and that might have been a bit of a straw, because that was just about 2 weeks. We went down to Vancouver for the gala and the awards night for that. But so as a result of this trip to Vancouver, the various government agencies that I had been in contact with, I let them know we were going to be in Vancouver, presenting an opportunity for us to get together face to face. Which that'd be another advice to entrepreneurs: try to get face to face, because there's we've reached out to these government agencies before about us, and you sort of get feedback, and there's this is interesting, but hasn't gone anywhere. But meeting up with them in person while we were down there really has been huge. There's SDTC we can get some funding from. We have an app with them. They're quasi-government agency that vets projects such as ours. They're trying to create new technologies which are beneficial to the market. So we have an app in with them, and meeting up with them down there, they seem much more interested in our technology than just when we're contacting them via emails. We've also met up with the British Columbia Ministry of International Trade, who came to Hart-Baines came to the awards of us, and then we had a follow-up meeting the next day down at his office, which lasted about 2 hours. And normally I'm the promoter for our product, but he for about 2 hours was like, "Wow, do you guys really know what you've got here? This is quite something." So he's already India was just in town, and we had some conference calls with some India representatives just a little week ago that came for us from the British Columbia Ministry of International Trade in the Clean Tech Division. And we'll be meeting up with them and Trade Canada, again, that we met up with last time, and some industry reps that are actually going to be in Vancouver for a big biomass conference to sort of get everyone together and say, this is the stage that we're at. We're getting all this interest from the rest of the world, coal-fired plants and other people that like to utilize that technology, but they'd really like to get a couple of tons of product to test, and then they'll start placing orders. So we need to get a couple of reactors up and running, or actually get this Peachland financing up and running. So that's the stage we're at right now, and we've got some funding sort of getting lined up. We're speaking to investors every day. So yeah, I really think it's any day that someone's gonna, whether it turns out to be the 15 million we need, or someone buys a chunk of it for 50 million or 100 million, who knows? But we're getting it. It's really exciting.
No, totally. I love how you're totally open and honest about kind of the day-to-day kind of pros and cons of being a startup, right? And talking about the hustle and how important it is to network and kind of keep at it. And like you said, you kind of have good days and bad days, and you never know, right? When the next thing's around the corner, and, sometimes it takes longer than you're hoping and whatnot. But sadly, Dave, we're out of time, but I want to kind of close the show with you kind of promoting where people can find you guys online, any social media, and if people kind of want to help or get involved with you guys, how they can go about doing that.
Let's see. Well, there's our website, which is Arterran Renewables at www.arterran, ARTERRAN renewables.com. We've also got a Facebook page, Arterran Renewables, of course. There's a Twitter, Arterran Renewables. Actually, it's at Arterran Renew, I should say.
Okay.
Because you can't get that many characters in. And,
yeah.
I'm David Tiessen, Tiessen. You can also find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And I'll post all these links in the show notes so people can actually just go to the website and find you guys and all the links that you just mentioned. But Dave, thanks again for taking the time out of your day to talk about, Arterran and what you guys are doing, and just kind of giving advice and talking kind of about the real world of how, these things go. I love it. I think it was awesome, and I really appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, and thanks, Kevin. I really appreciate your show that, shedding light on startups and entrepreneurship, and it's an exciting field. It's kind of maybe similar to being a starving artist, I'd say.
Totally.
but yeah, you get out there, but it's a lot of 12 to 14-hour days, and I think maybe a lot of entrepreneurs might be dead if it wasn't for cold pizza and bowls of cereal.
That's a good way to put it. I like it.
But yeah, keep going at it. As long as you've got yourself in an industry that has a future, and you just keep knocking on doors and being passionate, you'll make it.
Yeah, perfect, man. Thanks. And if I have anybody else that I think I could pass along to you guys, I'll do that, and hopefully we can get something, and you get your 15 mil as soon as possible.
Thanks, Kevin, and we'll stay in contact, and I'll let you know how things progress.
Sounds great, man. All right, well, talk soon. Have a good one.
Take care, sir.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. You can visit past shows at buildingthefutureshow.com. If you're going to the Startup Expo on February 16th and 17th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and want to record an episode, please contact me. The music for the show is by Electric Mantra. Check them out at electricmantra.com. Until next time, keep building the future.